results by Ryan Wilson, Anna Patterson, and Emily Hattan. The type of media we used to collect data was online news articles. We chose the online news instead of print because they're easier to access and collect data on. According to Forbes, 169 million Americans have read a newspaper in the last month, which includes print and mobile news. A Pew survey released last week found that 85% of U.S. adults now get their news on a mobile device, at least some of the time, up from 72% last year and 54% in 2013. 67% of those 65 years or older reported to use their phone or tablet for news, compared to 94% of Americans aged 18 to 49. Our codebook is broken down into 9 major categories: network, type, suspect race, suspect religion, suspect age, suspect sex, crime classification, crime location, and crime year. We found that most of a common type of mass murder was a shooting. The data collected shows there were only 2 mass murder events that had women as attackers. With the exception of 4 events, the rest of the mass murders occurred during the years of 2013 and 2018.
For our final table, we focused on the suspect's race, gender, and religion, as well as the type of murder that occurred and whether the event was classified as terrorism. Our results included 19 mass murder events from 2009 to 2018. We ran chi-square tests on each category, and of the 5, we were able to find significance in the relationship between a suspect's race as well as their religion and whether a mass murder is classified as terrorism. Although this is true, we personally found significance in the gender category. There were only 2 females involved in the mass murder cases we examined, compared to the 19 men that were suspects. Overall, there were not enough female cases to accurately determine statistical significance. The first significant relationship we found was between a suspect's religion and the crime's classification as terrorism. The most significant religion from our sample was Islam. Of all 9 cases where the suspect identified themselves as Muslim, the crime was reported as a terrorist attack. Islam was the most populous category out of all the sample options, with 42.9%. The next category with the most cases was unknown, which had a majority of suspects not classified as terrorists, with 3 out of 8 cases classified as terrorism and 5 that were not classified as terrorism. Both non-religious and other had no classifications of terrorist attacks. Compared to other religions, Islam suspects were significantly more likely to be classified as terrorists by popular news outlets than any other religious category from our sample. We concluded that there's a significant relationship between religion and if the crime was classified as terrorism, with a p-value of 0.004. The other chi-square tests we performed was the relationship between race and a crime's terrorism classification. The most significant relationship was between white suspects and Middle Eastern suspects. Of all 8 cases involving a Middle Eastern suspect, 100% of them were classified as terrorism. Compared this to white suspects, which also included 8 cases. Only 1 of them were classified as terrorists, while 7 were not. Out of the 42.1%, only 5.3% of those white cases were classified as terrorism. Concerning the other groups in our sample, there was only 1 case with an African American suspect, which was not classified as a terrorist attack. Our other category contained 2 cases, one of which was classified as terrorism. Through these, we concluded that there was a large gap between Middle Eastern individuals being classified as terrorists compared to other racial groups in the sample. Overall, we found there was a significant relationship between a suspect's race and the crime's classification as terrorism, with a p-value of 0.004. In the chi-square table comparing the relationship between religion and whether or not the act was described as terrorism, 9 of the 21 cases involved a suspect who identified as Muslim, and all of those 9 cases were considered terrorism. 8 of the 21 cases involved suspects of an unknown or unspecified religion, and 3 of those cases were considered terrorism. This research suggests that there is a significant relationship between suspect religion and whether or not the act was classified as terrorism. In the second chi-square table comparing the relationship between race and whether or not the act was described as terrorism, 8 out of the 21 cases involved a suspect from the Middle East, and all of those cases were classified as terrorism. Of the 8 cases where the suspect was white, only one of them was considered terrorism. One reason for these results could be that the media and their portrayal of people of different religions and races. The news often talks about ISIS and terrorism in the Middle East, and the news stories can influence the way people view others of a different religion or race. Also, the lack of understanding of another race or religion could lead to the media misrepresenting those people, which could also lead to fear, because people often fear what they don't understand, and that could spread.